Why the hell was the CEO's espresso machine screeching like the devil's personal humidifier again? I grumbled to myself while crawling behind the server rack, a flashlight clenched between my teeth and a 2-day-old banana weighing down my pocket. That cursed machine was tied into the same breaker as the East Wing Havok system, something I only discovered after the infamous latte-triggered blackout of 2011. No one ever bothered to document it. Of course they didn't. No one documented anything in that building except me. He knew because I remembered everything. That morning had begun exactly like every other one for the past 21 years. Me, Miranda Gene Harkins, unlocking the office doors at precisely 6:47 a.m., a full 23 minutes before official opening hours. Using the same original brass key they handed me back in 2002. I oiled it twice a year. You'd be amazed how many executives panic when a lock makes a noise, instantly assuming it's broken, much like their reasoning skills. The cleaning crew had left gum stuck in the sink again. Someone from product had abandoned sushi in the mini fridge over the weekend. The kombucha had exploded. None of that was technically my responsibility. None of it was written into any contract. Yet somehow, guess who ended up scraping dried seaweed off a smart fridge using a laminated calendar and a plastic spatula? Yours truly. Some days, I felt like I was the human embodiment of duct tape, holding everything together quietly, efficiently, and without recognition. Who said constantly, acknowledged only when something fell apart. The CEO still thought I worked reception, despite my business card clearly reading Facilities and Operations Manager. Meanwhile, my inbox overflowed with 320 unread urgent emails from people who couldn't swap a toner cartridge to save their crypto-infested lives. Things deteriorated further when the company hired a new HR director named Haley, fresh out of grad school. All teeth buzzwords and TikTok trends. She once asked me where the Ethernet cable plugged in. I told her, in the wall, sweetheart. Sama place your job performance is headed. She didn't laugh. Now, I may not be a TikTok expert, but apparently 97% of people listening to stories like this don't subscribe. That's like showing up to a potluck empty-handed and still leaving with Tupperware. So go on, hit that subscribe button. It keeps the lights on and the petty revenge well funded. Back to the chaos. I didn't attend fancy universities. I didn't wear blazers that cost more than my truck. But I knew that building, not the way a property manager knows a structure. He knew it, the way you know an aging dog, its aches, its moods, its warnings. He knew which pipes groaned before rain, which thermostat lost its mind when humidity hit 70%. Which fuse box creaked like a haunted dollhouse if opened too fast. I kept that company alive through power surges, toilet floods, and 3 CEOs' worth of catastrophic decision-making, and still they forgot me. No recognition, no bonuses, no handwritten thank you notes from the board. The closest thing I ever got was when I stayed late to unclog the women's restroom after someone dropped their badge into the toilet. Don't ask. The former VP of Finance handed me a half-eaten protein bar and said, "You're a Saint Marcy. My name is Miranda." Eventually, I stopped correcting people. I wasn't chasing medals. I wasn't trying to be anyone's hero. I just believed that if a thing needed doing, it should be done right. That lease the one that let us squat in prime downtown real estate for a fraction of what it was worth. I was the one who negotiated it. Back when the company was so small, it couldn't even get a landlord to return a call. We had 5 employees, one wheezing fax machine, and the kind of optimism you only have when you're too broke to know better. The founder looked at me across a sticky diner table and asked if I'd co-sign. I didn't. I put the entire lease under my own name. Nobody else had the credit back then. Nobody else had the leverage. I didn't mind. At the time, we were close. Not friends exactly, but something like family. At least the kind of family that borrows your car, eats your food, and swears they'll pay you back when things get better. And like most families, once things did get better, they conveniently forgot who kept the lights on. You ever step into a room you've spent decades managing and suddenly realize no one sees you unless the printer jams or there's a mouse sprinting through the break room? That was me, invisible until something went wrong. Then suddenly I was everyone's grandma and janitor rolled into one. God forbid the air conditioning so much as coughed. Then I'd transform into Queen Miranda, savior of sweat, patron saint of thermostats. So I kept showing up anyway, quiet, capable, unshakable, like furniture. The kind of furniture everyone uses and nobody thanks until it breaks. Then came that Monday. HR blasted out one of those all-staff emails with a subject line so cheerful it should have been illegal. Strategic realignment opportunities. In HR speak, that's the same as a mafia boss saying, "Take a ride with us." My stomach dropped. I'd seen enough layoffs to know the choreography. He'd held hands in hallways, helped people pack their desks, cleaned up the emotional debris after executives cried into their imported bottled water like they were the real victims. This time, I knew it in my bones. It was my turn. And I wasn't going to cry, because he'd already started remembering the things they'd forgotten they owed me. And for once, I wasn't going to be the one cleaning up the mess. The calendar invite hit my inbox at 4:58 p.m. right as I was scraping a fossilized burrito off the copper glass in the kitchen area. The subject line was short, stupid, and ominous. Quick sink har. No explanation. No lead-in. No heads-up. Just a meeting dropped onto my schedule like a turd in a punch bowl. I walked in the next morning right on time, like I always did. He wore my gray cardigan, the one with the hole at the elbow, and a stain shaped vaguely like Delaware. That cardigan had survived 3 EEOs, 1 office fire, and a surprise baby shower that ended in divorce. It was my armor. Conference room B was already occupied. Haley sat there with her perfect posture and her bright, practiced smile. The kind that belonged on a stepmother in a Lifetime movie. Next to her was a man from legal I'd never met. Slick hair, slicker shoes, and a folder he wouldn't stop touching like it contained the cure for cancer. "Miranda, thanks for coming in," Haley chirped, like she was about to offer me a cupcake instead of a knife. "We just wanted to have a little restructuring conversation." That word, restructuring, hit me like a sack of bricks. He'd translated that word for other people. I'd watched it land on their faces like a death sentence. He knew the rhythm by heart. First the smile, then the folder, then the apology that wasn't an apology. "We're going in a new direction," she said. He stared at her. That direction, of course, did not include me. Silence filled the room like fog. Then the legal guy slid the folder toward me, gentle as a mortician. Inside was a severance package so generic it could have been printed off a template called How to Erase a Human Being. 3 months of pay, and India close. Health insurance through the end of the month. How generous. They didn't even get my title right. And the letter called me Miranda J. Hawkins, 21 years, and they still couldn't spell my name. "We'll need your badge and keys today," the lawyer said, voice flat, soulless. "And any company property in your possession." I inhaled, slow, controlled. The kind of breath that could have cracked drywall if I let it. Then I reached into my bag and placed my badge on the table like a poker chip. Then the keys. All 11 of them, each labeled in my own handwriting from 2002. Back when I stayed late reprogramming door locks myself because we couldn't afford contractors and nobody else knew what the hell they were doing. He looked at Haley. "You sure?" I asked. She blinked. "No," I said softly, leaning in just enough to make her uncomfortable. "Man, are you sure you want these? Last chance." Holly put on that HR expression, sympathetic, bland, manufactured, fake as margarine. "It's not personal," she said. "Sure it isn't," I muttered, standing up. "Just remember, you can't fire what you never understood." He walked out before my eyes could burn the place down. Outside, the sun felt too sharp. The sidewalk buzzed with city noise, but everything inside me was strangely quiet. I didn't cry, not in front of them, not after 21 years of fixing their problems, calming their interns through panic attacks, cleaning their messes, keeping their fragile little empire running with tape and grit and memory. They wanted to forget me. Fine. But they'd forgotten one thing too many. I didn't drive straight home. Instead, I pulled into a Dunkin' parking lot, killed the engine, and just sat there with the car off, the silence buzzing louder than traffic. My hands rested in my lap. The air felt heavy. 21 years compressed into a single breath. Then I picked up my phone and called Lenny. Lenny was my old neighbor's kid. Used to mow my lawn when he was 13. Always asked for a soda afterward. These days he was a real estate attorney with a Bluetooth headset permanently fused to his skull and a nervous twitch whenever someone said the word arbitration. He answered on the second ring. "Miranda, everything okay?" "No," I said calmly. "But it's about to be." There was a pause. "You remember that lease we drew up in Dva?" I asked. Another pause. Longer this time. Then a low whistle slid through the speaker. "Oh," he said. "That lease." "Yeah," I replied. "Do they know?" I smiled for the first time that day. Not a warm smile. Not a happy one. A dangerous one. "They just asked for the keys," I said. "So I think it's time I gave them everything they asked for." I drove home slow. My house smelled like lemon polish and old war movies. My personal coping mechanism. He dropped my bag by the door, kicked off my shoes, and walked straight to the hallway closet. The one I jokingly called in case they try something stupid. I never thought I'd actually open it. The folder inside was hot pink, labeled in black Sharpie. Lease 2002. Miranda, only I pulled it out like it might explode. Inside, The original lease agreement, 7 amendments, a receipt for the lobby rug I bought before the company could afford furniture, and 3 post-it notes with crayon doodles from the founder's kid. Back when our office was one cramped room above a Thai takeout place, 21 years ago, they couldn't secure a lease if their lives depended on it. No credit, no revenue. 1 laptop, 1 fax line that screamed like a dying raccoon. I remembered it clearly. The founder, Randy, sat across from me at a Denny's, hands wrapped around a mug of cheap coffee, and said, "Miranda, if you don't co-sign, we're working out of my garage. My wife will kill me." I didn't co-sign. I whispered to the empty kitchen. "He signed the whole damn thing. Just until we got on our feet," he said. "We never talked about it again. After that, it was always me. Me renewing the lease. Me dealing with the property manager. Me coordinating walk installs, carpet replacements, and the mysterious smell in Suite B that turned out to be a dead squirrel decomposing inside the insulation. They never removed my name from the lease. They never even asked." He sat down at the kitchen table, cracked open a Diet Dr. Pepper, and started reading like my self-respect was buried somewhere in the fine print. Page 12. Section 9.8. Renewal of lease term shall require written notice from the lessee no later than 30 treats days prior to expiration. I blinked. Read it again. Then checked the expiration date. August 11th. I checked the calendar. August 3rd. 2 days too late. They hadn't renewed. They hadn't emailed. Legal hadn't called. HR hadn't asked. Not a single frantic message about zoning, renewal terms, or rent increases. They were too busy congratulating each other, reshuffling titles, and applauding synergy to notice the most important deadline tied to the company's physical existence. I leaned back in my chair, and a slow grin spread across my face. The kind of grin you get when you realize the universe just handed you the master key. It wasn't just that they fired me. It was how they fired me. Like I was a smudge on glass. Like I was disposable. Like I was just some middle-aged woman clutching a binder full of outdated trivia. But my trivia ran the building. And they forgot something critical. He was still the lessee, which meant they weren't tenants anymore. They were squatters with espresso machines. He picked up my phone and started scrolling. Insurance policy, still in my name. Havak contract, renewed last year under my email. Cleaning services only showed up because I Venmo'd the manager monthly under Building Freshness Fund. Utilities routed through a business account I opened with the city in 2005. Back when the power went out every time someone microwaved lunch and printed at the same time. Everything that mattered still ran through me. I could have warned them. I could have sent an email, forwarded the lease, or said a subject line like, "Hey, small oversight." But that's not what they would run if the roles were reversed. No. If it were me on the chopping block, they'd already be interviewing someone younger who needed Google to reset a breaker panel. So I closed the folder, poured another Dr. Pepper, and for the first time in 20 years, I shut the hell up. Let them feel the silence. Let them discover the edge right as they stepped off it. Let the espresso machine be their first clue, because now they were trespassing, and I had the paperwork to prove it. I wore my church shoes to the meeting with the property manager, not because I needed to look impressive, but because they made a louder sound when they struck marble floors. I wanted the building to hear me coming. Thomas looked up from his monitor when I walked into his office on the 4th floor. He was the kind of man who always smelled faintly of toner and copper, and somehow owned 17 different highlighters, each with a very specific purpose no one understood. "Miranda," he said, clearly surprised. "Didn't think he'd be seeing you back here." He smiled politely. "Let's just say I'm here in a legacy capacity." He tilted his head, confused in a golden retriever sort of way. He sat down, opened my bag, and slid the lease packet across his desk. Original agreement. All amendments. Still pristine. Even the sticky note where the founder's kid doodled a flying burrito during the 2009 renewal meeting. "I just want to confirm something," I said evenly. "No written renewal request was submitted by July 1st, correct?" Thomas blinked and started typing like the keyboard had personally offended him. "No," he said after a moment. "Nothing from the company. Nothing logged. I assumed they were going month to month while they worked out a new deal." I nodded, calm, measured, like a woman reading a weather report. "That makes sense," I said. "Because under Clause 9, the lease converts to a month-to-month tenancy if no notice is received." Thomas leaned back. His chair creaked like an arthritic knee. "Technically," he said carefully, "yes, that's correct." I reached into my bag again, slower this time. Deliberate. I placed a single document on his desk, thick paper, gold-embossed letterhead. "I'd like to formally notify you of lease termination," I said, "effective in 30 days. His eyebrows shot up so fast I thought OSHA might need to get involved. "Wait, you're terminating it?" "Yes," I replied, standing. As the lessee of record, they missed the renewal window, and I've already secured a replacement tenant. He swallowed. "Do they know?" "They will," I said, "soon enough." The replacement tenant was a wellness startup called Bloom Pulse. All green juice, artisanal air, and aggressively positive energy. Young founders, deep investor pockets. Desperate for downtown space to install Himalayan salt walls and kombucha taps. He met their founder at a farmer's market a year earlier while buying beets. She offered triple the current rent without blinking. Thomas ran a hand through his thinning hair. "This is going to get messy." "Messy," I said, "is what they gave me after 20 years of loyalty." He left before he could ask anything else. Back home, I opened my laptop and drafted a legal filing. Plaintiff Miranda Jean Harkins. Defendant, current occupant, suite 201, 221, cause failure to renew lease, material breach, unauthorized subletting. Turns out they'd rented out a back office to a crypto consultant without ever notifying me. Another little oversight. He filed it through the county portal, paid extra to expedite. The confirmation email timed into my inbox. I smiled. Then, like clockwork, HR emailed me. Subject: request confirmation of returned property, dear Miranda. Hope you're doing well. We're reaching out to confirm that you have returned all company property, including documentation, keys, badges, and any physical or digital assets belonging to the company. Please reply to confirm Best, Haley, I didn't hesitate. I clicked reply all, yes, including the ones you forgot I had. Send. I leaned back in my chair. That building once meant something to me. You watched it grow from drywall and Ethernet spaghetti into something shiny and self-important. He ate more lunches at that front desk than in my own kitchen. I laughed with interns. He cried when my dog died and found flowers waiting in the break room. But love has limits. And mine expired 2 days after they slid that folder across the table. I wasn't getting revenge. I was reclaiming. 2 mornings later, I stood in my sunroom, watering my peace lily with one hand and holding a certified envelope in the other. Heavy, official, course stamped, plaintiff, Miranda Jean Harkins, defendante, company name, occupant suite 201, 221. Subject, notice of termination and demand to vacate. My name sat at the top in bold. It felt surreal, like reading your own obituary, except instead of death, it was resurrection. Resurrection in sweatpants and orthopedic slippers, but still, across town, that same envelope landed at the front desk around 9:13 a.m. The receptionist was a temp. Name tag, said Amber in pink glitter pen. She probably thought it was junk mail and tossed it into the recycling bin between expired kind bars and a broken laminator. Upstairs, leadership was busy polishing their egos. Ipo talk, branding refreshes, a presentation about disrupting verticals. I saw the deck later on LinkedIn, stock photo of a woman laughing at a whiteboard while eating salad. They were too busy congratulating themselves to feel the ground pulling away. He folded the notice carefully and slid it into my filing cabinet, right behind my divorce papers and 2 unpaid parking tickets I kept for sport. That's when my phone buzzed. Dan from facilities. Hey, you okay? Something's weird here. Front desk got a court notice. Nobody's saying anything. Place feels off. Dan was one of the good ones. Quiet, competent. Once helped me chase a possum out of the ceiling tiles. He typed back, I'm more than okay, Dan. I'm just finally being seen. The conference room at Lenny's firm smelled like burnt coffee and laminated ambition. Fake plants sat in every corner, the kind that collected dust and guilt. One of those motivational posters hung crooked on the wall. Success. Over a photo of a mountain climber 1 bad step away from death. Lenny sat across from me in a blue pinstriped suit that made him look like a nervous ventriloquist dummy. Still, his hands were steady when he slid the final lease transfer documents across the table. All you need to do is sign here, he said, tapping the line labeled outgoing laissez, and again on page 4 under authorizing party. He hesitated, pen hovering. You still good with this? I looked down at the paper, cold, clean, clinical. Just like Haley's smile. Just like Haley's smile. Incoming tenant. Bloom Pulse Inc. Effective date. August 31, 12:00 p.m. Lease terms. $12,800 month. Triple net contract length. 5 years, and at the bottom, signature. Miranda Jean Harkins, no second thoughts? Lenny asked quietly. Only that I didn't do this sooner. The pen scraped across the paper like a guillotine blade. Just like that, 21 years of institutional memory transferred into the hands of a wellness startup with a Pinterest mood board and incense budget. Lenny exhaled. You'll submit this to the property manager today. Judge already approved the eviction. Posting goes up within 48 hours. He raised an eyebrow. They get 48 hours to vacate. He nodded. Once it's posted, no appeal, no wiggle room. They missed the renewal window, sublet illegally, and ignored termination notices. You didn't trap them. He met my eyes. They handed themselves the rope, built the gallows. I left with a manila folder labeled closure tucked under my arm. Not revenge, not payback. Closure. That night, I drove downtown. The city looked different after dark, sleek, metallic, like everything had been dipped in chrome and regret. He parked across the street from the building and shut off the engine. No headlights, just watched. Lights burned bright in the executive suites. Overtime, cateret sushi, inflated egos. Hallie was probably polishing another culture initiative. The CEO was likely rehearsing an investor pitch in the mirror with a scotch in one hand and a lie in the other. He sipped gas station coffee and rolled down the window. The building stood there, glowing and clueless. The same building that once felt like mine. Now, just a stranger wearing familiar bones. Suite 221, corner office. My old desk. Now occupied by someone who thought ADVAC stood for happy vibes and coffee. I smiled, not out of cruelty, not even joy. It was the smile of someone watching a freight train approach a man too busy texting to hear it. They had no idea that the next morning, a county marshal would zip-tie a fluorescent orange notice to their glass doors. No idea that in 48 hours, every brainstormed whiteboard, every yoga ball chair, every bean bag in the innovation zone would be loaded into a moving truck. Bloom Pulse waiting patiently behind them with cash wired and incense lit. He stayed until the lights flickered off. Then I drove home, window down, wind in my hair, manila folder riding shotgun. Peace settled in my chest, real peace. The kind I hadn't felt since about 2003, back when I learned that gratitude has an expiration date. But leverage never goes bad. At exactly 8:03 a.m., Haley strutted into the building like a smug department store mannequin. Almond milk latte in hand. Beige pumps clicking like applause meant only for her. She paused at the front desk. "Any messages?" she chirped. Amber blinked. "Ooh, yeah, something weird on the CEO's door." Haley rolled her eyes, probably assumed it was another passive-aggressive thermostat joke. Last week someone taped a Danny DeVito meme under it after the office hit 82 degrees. By 8:07, she was on the second floor. By 8:08, she was frozen in front of the CEO's office. Jaw slack like a python at a barbecue. Fluorescent orange eviction notice. Laminated, zip-tied, signed, sealed, served. Notice to vacate. Breach of lease. 48 hours her phone came out shaking, like she'd overdosed on oat milk. She tried to peel the notice off the glass. It didn't budge. By 8:30, the CEO arrived. Unshaven, Bluetooth glued to his ear, expecting another victory lap morning. Instead, he found Haley pacing, the marketing team rubbernecking, and a legal death sentence zip-tied to his door like a game over screen. He tore it down, read it, blinked once, twice. At 9:02, his phone rang. It was Thomas. "Mr. Altman, Thomas said calmly, professionally. This is to confirm enforcement of lease termination. We sent certified mail and email over 2 weeks ago. No response was received. We assumed your silence was intentional. Intentional, Altman barked. Of course, Thomas replied. Who ignores a 30-day legal notice unless they mean to? By 9-10 panic bloomed. Execs trickled in, each reacting to the neon paper like it was a live grenade. HR herded leadership into the glass conference room, the one with transparency more literal than metaphorical. They closed the blinds halfway. Didn't realize that they didn't the bottom. The entire floor watched the meltdown like reality television. By 10:15, someone finally read the paperwork closely. Hallie's voice dropped to a whisper. Wait, Miranda? Dan from facilities nodded slowly in the break room. Told you something felt off. Meanwhile, I was at home. Tea steeping, cat purring, phone buzzing like a disturbed hive. Lenny texted first. It's done. Sheriff posts tomorrow. You're a legend. Then Dan. They look like ants in a microwave. Proud of you. Then the local business blog lit up. Downtown tech firm evicted amid internal mismanagement. They didn't name me. Didn't need to. The comments filled in the blanks. Wasn't their office manager there forever? She knew where all the bodies were buried. I sipped my tea. Those bodies had been buried under thankless labor for 2 decades. Nobody gave me flowers on admin day. Nobody noticed me staying until 9 rebooting routers with a pen. But they noticed now. They just didn't know this wasn't the final act. Not yet. The call came at 7:42 p.m. I was halfway through reorganizing my spice rack. Alphabetical, obviously. A woman needs order somewhere in this godforsaken world. My phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen since the Christmas party where he forgot mine. Altman, Nathan CEO, Evicted ring. Once, twice, 3 times. I answered on the 4th, Miranda speaking. He didn't bother with pleasantries. What the hell is going on? He shouted. You can't do this. He put him on speaker, poured myself a glass of wine, and leaned against the counter like I was settling in for my favorite sitcom. Oh, I absolutely can, I said calmly. And I already did. You're evicting an entire company, he snapped. Do you have any idea what this looks like? The board is losing their minds. Press is circling. Investors. I cut him off with a sigh. Nathan, let me stop you right there. You fired the person who held all the keys. Building, legal, operational memory. You didn't even bother to ask who signed the lease. We assumed it was that, I said evenly, is the problem. You assumed about me, about the company, about what I was worth. Silence. I could practically hear his blood pressure climbing Mount Stupid. You blindsided us, he said finally, trying to pivot into victimhood. No, I corrected. He responded to being blindsided. The difference is, it came prepared. I opened my laptop and drafted an email while he panted into the phone. To, CEO, legal, HR, CC, facilities subject, company property, as requested attached is the complete original lease agreement, including all amendments, rider clauses, and documentation of undisclosed subletting violations. As you requested confirmation that all company documents have been returned, please consider this email fulfillment of that request. Regards, Miranda Diana Harkins, I hit send. Nathan, he continued, swirling my wine. This doesn't come back on me. Bloem Pulse already wired the first 2 months' rent. That shut him up. And just to be clear, I added, I didn't sell the company out. I just stopped carrying it on Bacco. The line stayed silent for a few seconds, then disconnected. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I just stood there as 20 years of weight slid off my shoulders like old paint during a thunderstorm. The following Monday, Bloom Pulse began moving in. They had a welcome banner printed and everything. Your vibe starts here, not my aesthetic. But they paid on time and knew how to read a lease. The old company scrambled for temporary space. Strip mall conference rooms, overpriced condos with terrible Wi-Fi. Rumors said they tried bribing Thomas with concert tickets and vague promises of strategic partnerships. Too late. The Bloom Pulse lease was signed, notarized, framed. Suite 221. By Friday morning, panic buy mode hit full throttle. Meanwhile, I sat on my porch with black coffee and an old portable radio playing classic rock while chaos unfolded 4 blocks away. The sky was blue. Birds sang Kansi. On 6th Street, former tech darlings hauled Herman Miller chairs and half-empty K-cup boxes into a rented U-Haul with one busted tie light. Someone taped printer paper to the truck. Strategic relocation cute. Altman finally lost it. Tan suit soaked with sweat, red-faced, he hurled a folding chair at the side of the truck. The clang echoed off the buildings like punctuation. The video went viral within hours. When office karma hits harder than your IPO, chair toss, leadership, I laughed. Deep, real laughter. That afternoon, a courier knocked on my door with a basket wrapped in cellophane. Organic fruit, lavender tea, turmeric gummies. A note sat on top. Miranda, thanks for the space and the story. We'll take good care of it. Bloom Pulse. He placed it on the counter, poured a glass of sangria, and walked down the hall. On the wall beside family photos and my first paycheck from 1981 hung a small brass hook. I reached into a drawer and pulled out the one thing I'd kept, the original office key. I hung it there like a trophy. Not because it unlocked anything anymore, but because once it opened everything. And now it closed the chapter exactly how I wanted. Quietly, legally, permanently. They asked for company property back. I just returned it with interest.